whatever. And like, I think you're dropping in on a conversation. I like that feel. You and I are friends, so like, I like that feel.
Well, it's a good thing you said that because we are live.
Yep. Well, that's what I figured. And
you didn't say, I hate you so much.
Jesus. Yeah, I said you and I together. I like that feel.
Here we go.
What's up, everybody? Jared here. Welcome to another episode of Today with Jared James. I am joined by a special guest, longtime friend, Mr. Dan Stewart. Dan, you want to say hello to everybody?
You got my name right.
How was I supposed to mess that up?
Amazing. He got my name right.
How am I supposed to get it wrong?
Jared.
That's as easy as it gets.
So good. So good. Hi, everyone.
Danny boy.
Here we go.
Dan, we'll get into it, but like I said, you and I are friends. You run a company now called Happy Grasshopper.
I do.
Which we've done a lot with over the years. We'll get into that, but I think everybody will be really interested in your backstory and all this kind of stuff because you've come a long way, and you've sold other companies, and there's all this kind of stuff that I think people would find really, really interesting. But it's been cool having you in. I mean, this all came about because less than a month ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, you and I were talking, and you were just like, hey, I'm going to come into town.
That's right.
I mean, am I wrong? Like, that's basically...
Well, so, I've got this core belief that whatever it is we want to achieve, relationships make it easier.
Right.
Right? And we've got a true legitimate friendship.
Yeah.
Like 14, 15 years, something like that now. We've known each
Lord.
other. We've watched ourselves grow our businesses, grow personally, professionally. And, I mean, that's what it's about, right? You can reach out to a friend and say, hey, let's get together, and then you do.
Wow. You were my age when we first met.
That's right. That's right. It probably was.
You got to love
Probably
that.
was.
Are you doing the math right now?
One more time. Just,
let
me hear it.
Are you doing
Speak
the math
up, get
right
a little
now?
louder for me, Jared.
Are you doing the math?
Dick.
By the way, we usually, since Linda's not here, Tomas, what's going on, man?
Oh, hey. How you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah,
I get
good.
I get crap from her that I don't acknowledge Tom in the beginning because I just like go into my thing, and so she always takes credit saying that she said hello to Tom.
well.
So, Tom, this is me saying hello, not Linda.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Okay,
Thank you so
wow,
much.
wow,
I feel
none of that feels real right now. Am I right?
Where's Linda when we need
Yeah,
her?
right.
Oh, God.
I just realized I did not even. I usually before we do these, I text my kids and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be out of commission for the next whatever unless there's like an emergency, something like that, and I didn't do that. So if you see me jumping on my phone, that's why. Anyway, yeah, so we were talking. We've been friends for a long time. We stayed in condos together, separate bedrooms.
That has happened.
We have traveled places. We have, just all of it. It's like you got we always joke around like you have your work friends and then you have your friends' friends, and and never shall the two, intertwine. But I think it's safe to say that we're real friends too. We get together, we go hang out. We went out last night. It's always good. It's always fun just having someone you just kind of like. I don't know about you, but like I actually don't mind talking business. With some people, I get tired of it.
You know what? Some people are sports fans.
Yeah.
They're into hobbies and whatever. For me, it's always been business.
Yeah.
Like scoreboard counts, right? Scoreboard is your bank account.
Yeah.
And that to me is a lot of fun. So I'm always open to talk business.
Yeah, I mean, but we obviously talk a lot of other things too. We'll just grab some drinks, hang out. Last time we went to a place, it was a Puerto Rican night with a band, and so we fit right in.
Pretty sure that was Cuban night, but
How dare you contradict me on
pretty
my
sure
podcast?
It was Cuban night, Tom.
How dare this is your first and
Jared,
last.
come on, man. Learn the difference.
I think he's wrong, by the way. Okay, just to be clear, I think you're saying that just to say it. But no, we had a good time doing that.
It was literally called Havana Nights. It literally was. Pretty sure that's in Cuba.
You know what? Okay. How dare you? Okay.
Here we go.
Anyway, I guess we're just kind of experiencing. You got to hang out with Teddy a little bit.
Yep.
Which is
my boy Teddy.
Yeah. Well, he's got you. He just comes and drops the toy on your foot and
that's all it takes.
Backs off and
That's
looks
all
up
it
at
takes.
you, and
Yeah.
that's that. You almost took my wall out in the middle of the night.
That's true. Yeah. Word of caution to anyone who's staying in a guest room at your buddy's house: don't leave your suitcase where you can trip over it. Just saying.
But thank God for your cat-like athleticism.
That's true.
Because you survived
And I didn't damage your wall.
a little bit.
Just slightly.
Yeah.
I improved it a little bit.
See, I've got to know you. I think you oversold on purpose. You made it sound like you were an angry teenager that punched a hole in the wall.
Okay.
And you're like, well,
Maybe a
I've done
little.
this. And I'm like, well, let's go see. And then you pointed out what appears to be just a bit of a, black.
It was violent, Tom. It wasn't good.
You thought it was going to wake me up.
I wasn't proud of it.
You thought it was gonna wake me
because
up.
I was screaming.
Are you serious?
Not really.
I was like, what?
Yeah, not really. But inside, I was like, oh my God, that hurt.
I was like, Dan's
Wasn't that
having
bad.
quite the time down there by himself. That's an awful lot of screaming. I didn't know what to make of that. But I said, hey, to each their own. It's been a long time since we've slept in the same house. That beautiful view you had, I was just making sure Teddy was next to me. That's all. I just
right.
want to make sure
Wow,
everyone was safe.
What kind of podcast is this? Where are we going with this?
No, this is,
I don't even.
this is new.
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
I've known him for 15 years, but I feel like I don't know him at
Dan,
all.
Dan, this is not the way we would joke around.
I don't know you at all. Who
Yeah,
are
okay,
you?
yeah.
Where's my friend Jared?
We're doing, you know exactly.
Yeah, here we
okay?
go. Here we go.
Anyway, so we did that, and then I told you before you came in, I said, man, grab your gym clothes. I said, if you're going to come hang out, you can jump into my routine. We're going to go do this. And so we got up this morning. We hit the gym, got some workout in, and then left there, did some work, and now we're doing this. So I'm going to bring you through my routine tonight, too, as far as the places that I frequent.
Alcohol.
No,
sleep.
I go to
alcohol.
That's not-
You're missing the second round of the gym.
That's-
So that's
yeah.
coming.
Yeah,
That's
right.
next.
That is,
Yeah.
it's
Little-
funny. We
little
were
gym
talking
in
to
between the alcohol. And
we were
the
talking to
sleep.
Linda yesterday, and she's like, I think I'm going to go do round 2. And she was sick. She's like, I think I'm doing it 2 a day. And I'm like, oh, my God. Yeah, just when you feel good about yourself. So anyway, we're looking forward to some good times. I'm going to bring you tonight to a place I go to all the time, Bin 100 on Fridays, and just have a good meal, relax. Kids coming in. Got the kids tomorrow. I'm sure they're looking forward to seeing you. That's going to be good. But I've always described you when from a stage perspective. So when we first met, I'm so bad because I might say the wrong story, but I feel like we met. Was it on an Explode tour?
That's exactly
Oh,
right.
thank God, because I've done this before and I've said where we met, and someone's like, we met way before that, and you were up on stage.
Grinder.
Yeah, Grinder. You were up on stage, and me and another guy, who were, I use this so loosely, but I just mean we were being paid to do speaking. Like we were
Right.
professional. We saw you up on stage, and you had such a command. You were so. I called you Mr. Rogers. I said,
I was changing my shoes on stage.
I said-
I put on a sweater. Like,
Dan.
what the hell, dude?
you didn't even ask, and I already said, I will be your neighbor. You were up there talking, and I don't know what you said, but all I heard was, won't you be my neighbor?
You know what? Maybe not everyone feels this way, but that's high praise, dude. Mr. Rogers was the jam.
Oh, this is
that
praise.
Dude is amazing.
Okay, let
High
me finish the
praise.
compliment because this is praise. So I'm up there and I'm watching choo-choo trains go around and little puppets around, and you're, won't you be my neighbor? And me and this other, I put, for anybody who's not watching, who's just listening, I'm putting in air quotes, this other professional speaker that are in the back. We're like, this guy is amazing. I'm like, I'm leaning on every word right now. Like,
Wow.
this is fantastic. This is, and you were telling stories and just, you were a great example that you don't have to, there's so many different styles to do things,
Yeah.
and that you don't have to talk super fast or be super over the top on something, or to be whatever to make a point. You were making your points differently, and but it was effective. It was like, hey, this guy's good at what he does. And then you and I met and we talked, and we obviously hit it off, and the rest is history. But I would love to, for our audience, because we're going to get into, you've had a long career.
He's calling me old again, Tom.
Yeah, but come on, we've all had a long career at this point. But I mean, you've had a long career. You have accomplished a lot that I really want to get into a little bit. But I want to get to, I want to Oprah this a little bit and get a little bit before that, okay? And I want to talk about when you see the person, because you're such a unique person. It's just like, Dan when you're with him. Like, it's unique. When you're talking to Dan, it's different. Like, it's a different conversation. It's a different tonality. It's a different, what shaped that? Like, what role did your mother and father play? What role did your, like, just bring us through, how Mr. Rogers becomes.
In a lot of ways, Mr. Rogers was a massive influence on my early years, right? I'm Gen X. We were that generation where the parents were like, there's water in the hose, have a drink, right? You can't be in the house while the sun's out, like just go. That was kind of the thing. And, my situation, I want to be clear about this, right? Because we all have some circumstance in our lives, and whether that's good or bad, it's really the way we react to it that I think gives us the most possible energy to move forward. So my situation wasn't that uncommon. I had parents who were, like my dad was a Vietnam veteran. He, had untreated, undiagnosed PTSD that he medicated with a fifth of whatever alcohol every night. And my mom was the kind of drinker where if she was awake, it was just because she hadn't had enough to pass out yet. And, part of that was just cultural at the time. You think about when they got together, they got married in 1962. They did the whole cocktail party, like the 5 o'clock cocktail every day.
Yeah.
And it just turned into a pattern for them that seemed normal to me as a kid. That's just how it was.
Yeah.
And, there's 4 stages in the development of personality. And I'm going to get a little geeky here if that's cool. But the first stage is when you have that realization that your family's not all right. Like there's a moment, no matter what kind of crazy Jerry Springer childhood you might have had, mom and dad were awesome. They were the people who fed you and clothed you and protected you from whatever. Like anything in the world was going to be fine if mom or dad were there. And then there's an experience in your childhood at some point where you go, uh-oh, we're actually not okay. There's a problem here. And the way you react to that realization becomes a foundational element in who you become. And when we had that moment, and I don't know if this is cool to share on this podcast or not, but I'm going to go there.
You just told everybody we met on Grindr, so I feel like everything's on the table now.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So I'll set the scene here for you. My brother and I, we lived in Miami, Florida at the time. We shared a bedroom. We're in bunk beds, and we hear our parents arguing, and then we hear like something smash. I'm like, what is this? And I'm probably 5. My brother's 4, 3, 4, somewhere in there. And we crawl down out of the bunk bed, and we creep down the hallway, and we kind of peer around the corner there, and in the kitchen, my mom is on her knees in the center of the kitchen, and my dad is smashing bottles of alcohol on the floor all around her. And he's fed up with the fact that she just drinks until she passes out. And, there was a little time before they realized we were there. And then, of course, when they saw that we were seeing this happen, everything changed in that moment. And that was the first time my mom went into inpatient treatment for her addiction problems. And of course, dad's busy earning a living, so we were split up. I went and stayed at Tony Becker's house. And I have so many parents who I wasn't born to, but who made such a big difference in my life.
Yeah, right.
And his parents were really good examples of this because there was hot breakfast in the morning for Tony before he went to school. I was like, what? That's a thing? That's a possibility? That was amazing. It was, mom and dad actually caring about him and made sure that he had what he needed. And I observed that, and I kind of carried that lesson, even from that young age forward. Every time we moved, and we had 14 schools before I graduated from high school.
Wow.
So a lot of moves, but every time I'd make a best friend who had a really great family, and I would do everything I could to just spend all my time there.
Wow.
So, name after name after name after name, there's so many people that I need to be grateful for. So that foundational element that kind of shaped my personality, back to the original question, the lesson for me was that you can get what you need from places you don't have it. Like my family, the one I was born into, was so completely different from the family I've created. The family I've created has been much more influenced by those other families I spent time with while I was growing up than by the one I was born to.
Interesting. It's like the whole you can choose your friends, not your family, but the relationship of those people you needed as far as what they give.
Yeah.
So you had to get it somewhere else.
Yep.
The stability that came with it, the love that came with it, you had to
like,
get it from somewhere else.
Yeah. So, I suppose the thing I'd want to share about that is no matter where you are, where you come from, what your life situation is, if you're open to it, there's always help available. Like I think the Zen koan is something like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And I've always really believed that's true because there's so much love that's open and available in this world.
Yeah.
And I sincerely believe if you ask for help, you're going to get it.
Yeah, right.
Right? You really will. So I guess that's the first point in how I became the person I am. Right?
So what were the four? You said there was 4 stages.
Yes. So actually, I misspoke. There's 3.
Okay.
There's 3 pivotal events that really go into this. So the
is
second
a sham.
one.
This episode is a sham.
Yeah.
Scrap it.
Here we
Okay.
go. Start over. Yep.
Okay.
Edit that out later, Tom.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So number 2, this is an event that happens in your adolescence. You're a little bit older, right? It's where you look around at everyone else at school, your friends, your peers, and you go, something's not right with me. Like, ooh, right? This is one of those moments. And I mentioned moving all the time. We had moved from Newport Richey, Florida, where we were like maybe upper middle class in that environment. We had like bicycles. And that was kind of a cool thing, right?
Bicycles.
We shared a bike for a long time. So when my brother and I both had our own bikes, that was pretty special.
Wow.
So anyway, we moved to Marco Island, right? My dad's a civil engineer, works as a construction manager, and there's lots of construction going on there. So we kind of followed the boom all over Florida. So we enroll in school, and here I am at middle school with these other kids, and I'm used to being able to like make a friend, but it's a real challenge here because whatever we could afford was so far below what everyone else could afford. We had a boat. Like my dad had this 24-foot boat. We'd go out all the time. We'd spend time in the 10,000 islands. We'd like camp out over the weekend there. We had a ton of fun. But that wasn't the right kind of boat, right? It wasn't a big enough boat. It was like the first time in my life where I went, wow, I'm not like everybody else. Like, this is different. And so the way you react to that moment fills in another portion of your personality. And for me, this is when my need to become an entrepreneur actually really showed up. Because, I felt a need to have some things that my parents weren't willing to provide. And so I used to buy packs of bubble gum.
Oh, yeah, I remember
It was
those.
like 25 cents a pack, and I'd break it all apart, put it in a paper bag, and I'd sell it between classes at school for 10 cents a piece. And I did that, and then I made cinnamon toothpicks, and I'd sell those for 10 cents a piece. And, I was like the guy who had the hookup, right?
The entrepreneurial journey.
I mean, it's part of it for sure, but that's where I got the money that I needed. That's where I got to feel like I could take care of myself. It felt like, okay, my parents won't give it to me, and yet I still really want to have it. And, that also informed another chunk of my personality. It's like, if there's something you want, you need to go get it.
Yeah.
Right? You have the autonomy, you have the power, you have the agency to do things on behalf that empower you. So that's a really small example of it, but I'm a guy who's started 7 companies. I'm still that same dude who was selling gum out of a paper bag, right? It's just a different paper bag.
Say that again. Repeat that again, though. You started how many companies?
7.
Okay, so we'll get into that, obviously.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
talk about that.
Okay.
Talk about that. So
All right.
The last stage number 3. this is that moment where you realize it's up to you. Like, no one's coming to save you. You've got to do this on your own. And for me, that moment happened my freshman year in high school. I remember sitting at the back of the class and the teachers saying stuff and writing it on the board, and I couldn't read it. And I was like, oh, both my parents wear glasses. I probably need to get my eyes checked.
Yeah.
And so I went home and I asked if we could get my eyes checked, and they're like, no, your eyes are fine, right?
That's old school right there.
No, your eyes are fine. And so, a couple more months go by, and I'm like, look, really, I'm having trouble. I can't read things that are on the board at school. I need to get my eyes checked. And they're like, your eyes are fine. Don't worry about it. You're fine. And what was really going on at that time was my family was not in a good financial position. My dad was way overextended on things. And like the third time I asked, they said, look, you have a job. Day I turned 14, I got hired at Burger King. And that was my first, W-2 earning job. And I remember I could work, I think it was a maximum of 20 or 22 hours a week. And after my taxes, my check was like $26.
Oh,
right?
my God.
That was pretty brutal. So I had to save up over weeks and weeks and weeks to go get my eyes checked. And I went to Pearl Vision. I don't know if they're still around.
I was going to say, I don't even know if they're.
And it cost me like $99 to get my eyes checked. And they said, yes, you need glasses. I went to my parents and they said, we don't have money for glasses. And so I had to save up again to buy my first pair of glasses. And I thought, this is all up to me. You combine these three things. Whatever it is that you want, you can get it through connecting with other people. That's what I learned with Tony Becker's family, right? And then in Naples, I learned, hey, if you don't have what you want, don't bitch about it. Do something about it, right? I'm a proactive guy. I take action to this day. And yes, having financial security, building wealth is something that's important to me. It's important. Life is short.
Yeah.
Let's get the financial boot off our throats as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So we can really, enjoy life.
Yeah.
And then that final element of knowing it's up to me. Well, I got my undergraduate degree with my funds, no one else's. I'm super proud of the fact that I didn't take any student loans or help at all until my junior year. But I graduated with almost no student loan debt. I had some, but it wasn't much. And that to me felt like a real accomplishment at the time. But immediately post-college, I felt like, okay, I've done everything right. I was a great student. I graduated with a near flawless GPA. It was like 3.98. And there was just nothing there for me. There were no jobs that were waiting. There was no employer who was like, oh, we recognize the effort you've made. Here's the life you want. I felt like I'd been lied to. And I said, well, I need to go back to selling gum out of a paper bag. I need to work for myself. I just have to figure out what it is I actually want to do.
You felt like as long as you put it on yourself that you would be fine. So you find this common thread when it comes to entrepreneurs where it's they would rather fail on their own than make it doing whatever. You felt more comfort in saying, let me put this on me. Let me just how do I become responsible? Was it that or something else, or what was it?
It was at first it was a massive sense of doubt of, can I even do it? If I try this thing, what if I fail? What will that mean? Right there, because you've got to balance out. Sure, gung ho, let's go. I'm going to be fine. Everything's going to work. But at the same time, you're managing lots of, what if this doesn't? Oh my God, I could ruin everything. And when I opened my first company, I thought for sure we'd be successful. I was out of business in 90 days.
How old were you at that point?
I was 28.
Oh, so you were still, this was not like you were 18 or you were this was
I wasn't that guy because, my college experience, I graduated into a market where there just weren't any jobs, and I ended up bartending and waiting tables. And I was also writing. I did little scab writing. I'd do some articles. And
we'll get into that. That makes sense. What was your degree in?
Oh, this is a good one. It's theater arts.
You know what?
Yeah.
I knew that.
He says he's my friend.
Yeah, I actually knew that. I mean, we've frequented karaoke's often, where I make requests.
Yeah, I'd like to apologize to anyone who may have been there.
No, are you
but
kidding
we had
me?
fun.
It's the best. I
Yeah,
mean, you
we had
see
a good
this guy do Prince.
Craziness.
They're like, is he still alive? Oh my God! Because this.
Jared may be overselling it.
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
touch here.
Oh, it's a good time. Believe
Just
me,
a touch.
by the time we're doing karaoke, anything's going to be
That's
good
right.
at this point.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be
'cause
clear.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm surprised you remember.
Yeah.
But okay, so I want to cover a couple different things here. Number one, because this is a kind of a common theme here, and I've talked about this myself. You went got your college degree, you did whatever. So based on your degree, you don't think that helped you in your entrepreneurial?
Yes and no.
Or it did, yeah.
Yes and no. Like from a, can my degree open a door for me that might not otherwise open? Absolutely not. It's not like I became a surgeon, right? I didn't get an engineering degree, right? I
Right.
pursued a liberal arts
You're not an
degree in
accountant.
theater,
You're not a, yeah.
right? Because I cared deeply about storytelling.
Yeah.
Which, all this is connected. Like,
Yeah.
who I am and what I do today makes perfect sense based
Completely.
on my experience. But I will say that what I learned in college was a massive, ridiculous work ethic. Like, there are plenty of people who are way more talented than I am.
Yeah, that's the truth.
There may not be another person alive who will outwork me.
Yeah.
Like, I will do whatever it needs to be done. I just will.
Yeah.
And, when I had, this is ridiculous. This story sounds so ridiculous, but it's true. My first 2 years of college, I took all my classes 2 days a week. My first one was at 8 a.m. My last one got out at about 10 p.m. Right? So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I worked for Hickson Construction. I was a laborer. I'd show up on the job site at like 7 a.m.
Now that's adding up for some future stuff too.
I would just totally, whatever they needed me to do, I'd do, from sweeping floors to moving concrete blocks to, learning to be a framing carpenter. Like, whatever needed to be done, I would do. And then usually, you start at 7 a.m., you end at about 3 p.m. Well, I'd grab a quick shower and then I'd go to Stormy's restaurant and I'd wait tables all night, from like 4 or 5 p.m.
Yeah.
until whenever they closed. So those were 2 jobs I had while I was going to school full time. And then on the weekend, I picked up construction odd jobs through the super at Hickson Construction.
Huh.
And I did like whatever lawn mowing,
Yeah.
delivery, like whatever sort of odd jobs I
Yeah.
could pick up. And that was how I paid for my first 2 years of school. It was this insane schedule.
Yeah.
My junior year, things ramped up a little bit. And, as a performance student, I had some scholarship money, and I also had commitments. Like, it's hard to be in a play and show up at work on time.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I had student loans, was I had to stop working for periods of time while things were in production.
So, okay, so that's so interesting. So I actually forgot that you were in the arts. I am now reminded. So that's not a classic tale of, you go from the arts over to being an entrepreneur. Like we always hear the serial entrepreneur or whatever, which in most cases means that somebody's an unemployed kid sitting in their parents' basement with a hoodie on,
Right.
and I work for myself, and it's like, well, if you're not generating revenue, you're not really, So how do you go from that to, you said there were 7 companies. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are those companies? Let's just break this down.
Well, I got to explain that transition. I remember being a freshman and, a senior in high school, and I went to some state drama thing. It was at the University of Florida, and we're meeting people who've majored in theater. And I remember asking a guy, I was like, "So I really enjoy this. It's a lot of fun, but nobody makes a living at this. Like, the number of actors who actually pay their bills is ridiculously small.
Yeah.
When you really think about
Yeah.
it." And I said, "So what's your plan if this doesn't work out?" And he goes, "Are you kidding? Everything that you learn in theater is going to be useful in business. You've got to be a great communicator, right? You've got to have a strong work ethic." And I'll say, as hard as I work, I've never worked harder than doing summer stock, where you put up, 3 shows, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. It's like massive amounts of rehearsal
Really?
while you're in production. I've never had a harder job than that. That was absolutely insane.
Interesting.
That was pretty nuts. So the first company I started, is a result of the first real job I had. Post-college, I got hired by GT Directories, which, for you young folks, there used to be something called the Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, big
right.
time. By the way, there's still a book. There is some salesperson somewhere that is still selling ads to businesses
Yeah.
in some kind of a Yellow Pages, Yellow Book kind
Yep.
of like that is the most Jedi salesperson on the planet. You're convincing other business people that someone's going to see this.
Well, I imagine some people still use it. I know that
As what, like a booster for a child?
I mean, we see that sort of thing. It's easy to joke about, but at the time, and this is the mid-'90s when I started working there, if you didn't have an effective Yellow Pages presence, your business wasn't going to get nearly as much exposure. Like, you had to have it. It's
I almost
like
took a
being on
job. I almost
the
took a
first
job
page
at
of
one
Google.
point. I almost took a job at one point because the base was decent. Like the base was really good.
Yeah.
And you was just like, oh my god, like this is,
Right.
come on, I could do this. And by the way, a good salesperson could do anything. You put them in almost any sales job, and they're going to figure that sucker out. But that was like in my mind, one of the best options out there
Well,
from a stability standpoint.
I was just happy to have any job, quite frankly.
Yeah,
'cause,
yeah.
it was so tough to get hired, and I had this huge chip on my shoulder. I did not want to be a salesperson. Like, that just sounded about the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Who wants to grow up and work in sales? Nobody. Like, it just seemed like absolute worst. I knew I wanted to be self-employed, but I hadn't yet made the connection that
I'm about to say, everybody's in sales.
Everybody is in
Yeah, I
sales.
was gonna say.
I didn't yet get it at that point, right? I had this very mid-20s
yeah.
kind of paradigm in my head that
Yeah.
I was an artist at heart.
Yes.
I was going to contribute something of great meaning eventually. I just, I was open to that. Like, my
Yeah.
childhood hero was Michelangelo.
How about that?
I just thought, wow, what an amazing person to be so capable at so many different things. Michelangelo.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Ninja Turtles. I'm sorry.
Jared James, everyone. Jared James, yeah.
Because mine was
Naturally.
Raphael.
Okay,
He had a red bandana.
That makes sense.
Like it was.
Master Splinter, can
No.
you save us from
Yeah,
this,
exactly.
please? Yeah.
I had to go there, man. I'm
Nothing.
sorry.
Yeah, it's
it
quite
was
all right.
Michelangelo.
Yeah, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, all those amazing Renaissance thinkers, engineers, painters, sculptors. I just thought, wow, what an unbelievable thing. I remember being a kid and learning how Michelangelo saw the David inside this block of marble, and he didn't sculpt it; he released it. It was already there.
You sound like an artist.
And I was
now.
like,
now
oh,
you sound like an
know,
artist.
Like, that sort of stuff was just amazing to me. And another childhood hero was Walt Disney.
Oh yeah, that's a good
Right?
one.
I mean, you think about the synergies of all of his businesses and what he really created
Yeah.
and the massive impact he made on the world. And, I really see any entrepreneurial endeavor as being capable. It can be elevated to the level of, service to humanity.
Yeah.
It can be an act of love. And,
Yeah.
and I hope my businesses have shown that.
Yeah, that is the Walt Disney one, man. I mean, that's one that I don't think people pay enough attention to. What he took from and then left this world with is absolutely just, and what he went through to do it, and it's just absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, we were watching. I was with Linda recently, and she had her kids. And
Linda who?
I think it's my California girlfriend. And you'll love that one.
Hi, Linda.
Yes. But the kids were watching they were watching the old, the Mickey, the soundless
Oh,
Mickey.
like Steamboat Willie?
Loving it.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it going, yeah, this still plays. This is still, I'm loving this. Yeah, this is good. This is,
Yeah. It reminds me of that phrase, people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember the way you made them feel.
Yeah, Maya
right?
Angelou, yeah.
And for you to say, Mr. Rogers, that's high praise, dude.
Very high praise.
Because who made you feel better when you were a kid than Mr. Rogers?
No. I mean, did you watch the movie?
I did.
I
yeah.
thought he was so
did.
principled, like to the point where, like, the way he affected that journalist
Mm-hmm.
who was so skeptical, so, whatever. And like every time he would try to hit an angle or a turn where he's like, all right, here's where I'm going to find out who he really hears. He found out,
Yeah.
oh no, that's really who he is. Like, he doesn't care about the money. He doesn't care
Yeah.
about, he legitimately.
Yeah, it wasn't artifice.
Yeah.
It was like a person actually doing something because they believed in it. And it really made a huge difference. And, part of what you saw in the movie, I think it was in the movie, maybe I just know this from his history, but he was a civil rights hero.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yep.
He had a black man. I can't remember the officer's name, and they washed their feet together.
Yeah.
And that was just
Which now
like
sounds crazy.
I mean,
like that it's even a thing.
Like, I just can't imagine. I'm grateful that, we've made some improvements in society for sure. I don't think we're all the way there, right? We're never going to feel like we're perfect and we got it right.
To
but
go.
It's better than it used to be for sure. And, that's kind of the segue back to this arc here, right? Things are better than they used to be. Like,
Yeah.
Life is a series of failures that you just recover from.
Yeah.
My first company failed. I was out of business in 90 days because I had no expectation for how much money I would actually need to keep the company going.
Which company was that now? Walk us through.
Well, I called it Inner Strength, and it was a sales training organization because I'll tell you what happened. I got hired at GTE, and they liked me, and, I did really well through the training, and I learned all the scripts. As an actor, that wasn't a challenge, but I didn't have that, like, heart of a killer salesperson, right? So my wife and I, we'd had our first child, Zoe, and she was about a month old when my boss called me into her office. She goes, Dan, we like you, but we're going to have to take your headset back and give it to someone who knows how to use it. And I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? And she goes, we're going to let you go.
That's quite a way to say it.
Well, Lisa Capco was her name. And
naming names.
Well, she's one of those people where, like, that was part of the worst day you can imagine. And looking back, I know what a gift she actually gave me in that moment. Because, like, I remember it so clearly. I can smell her office right now. It's, like, right there for me. I felt this little switch in my brain just click over, and it was like, oh, wait, they hired me to make sales. I have to do that thing. And so I just started, like, I don't even remember what I said, but the meeting ended with me not getting fired and having a small window in which to improve my results. And I did. And I went from that, like, role reluctance, completely rejecting the idea of being in sales as a good thing, to embracing it. And I became the fastest promoted, highest earning person in that division. So I went from inside telesales to outside premise sales,
Right.
where, all of a sudden I'm 28 years old. I've got a company car. I'm making $150,000 a year.
Living
like
life.
This is not a life that I really saw being even possible for me.
Wow.
And the greatest gift of that time in my life was every single day I worked with entrepreneurs. Every one of my customers was a business owner. I got to go and visit and see what was working and what wasn't working. And I'd go into the accountant's office and I'd be like, I've never met a happy accountant. I don't think there is such thing, right? I'm not going to do it. That's not my jam. I'd go into the attorney's office, and that old saying about attorneys, never hire an attorney you like. It's pretty true. Like, as a lot, they're not happy. Who wants to argue all the time? I don't, but they do. Attorneys love that stuff. No, I don't want to do that. There were so many different paths I thought I could follow. And just looking into the lives of these clients, I thought, well, I think I have a pretty good idea what will fit for me. But I didn't have the necessary background. So quick story here. This is so cool. I'm struggling to remember the name of this client, but when I was in inside sales, he was what we called a new eye. That's a new installation of a business phone number. And so I call him and I'm like, hey, it's Dan. I'm your Yellow Pages rep and it's time to get your ad set up. And he's like, Dan, here's the situation. I have horrible credit. What's the biggest ad you can sell me without checking my credit? And at the time it was $500 per month. So we found an ad that was like just under the limit, and the next year it's time to renew him. And I'm like, okay, I wonder what happened with this guy. How's this going to work out? And the ad crushed for him. He's like, Dan, you gotta come to our house. This is great. I was in an apartment last year. Now we're homeowners, man. We have a house, and I paid my bill every time. What's the biggest ad I can buy now without you checking my credit? And that was $2,500 a month. So we put him into that program, like just under the barrier of $2,500 per month. Next year comes around, it's time to renew him. And he's like, Dan, my life has completely changed. And he had bought a waterfront home in Tampa, Florida. He's a guy who rolls paint on the walls, you know? I'm busting my ass as a sales rep in a job that I don't really feel like I totally love, but I love what I'm learning in the process. And here's this guy who went from living in an apartment to buying a waterfront home in a 3-year window of time. And I just thought, I'm on the wrong side of this relationship. I need to jump out here. So I opened this sales consultancy. My business name was Inner Strength, and I created a product I called...
What was the name?
Inner Strength.
Inner Strength, okay.
Yeah, and that was kind of, what do you name your first company? You want it to be really meaningful. And I was like, Inner Strength, that's like my story, I'm like that weed that pushes through the concrete. You can't stop me, right? So Inner Strength was that company name. And I created this product called Yellow Pages Gold. And the idea was that I would consult with business owners about how to get the best deal with their Yellow Pages investment, right? And of course, this now is the late 90s, and I was on the team that launched the first version of Super Pages, which was where the Yellow Pages saw what the internet was going to do to them, and they were trying to transfer revenues online. So, yeah, just a complete and total failure. 90 days later, I'm looking for a job, and I get one with a Yellow Pages client of mine. He owned a contracting firm. He did custom home building, remodeling, and historic reconstruction and renovations. Did this in Sarasota, Florida. So I go to work for him, and I had wanted to be a business owner, and the deal we made was if you grow revenue by a certain amount, you can become an equity holder in the business.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I'm going to teach you how to be a project manager, because I already knew a bunch about construction, having grown up with it through my dad, and also having worked for Hickson Construction. So I had my arms pretty well around sticks and bricks. And so this business owner said, we're going to double revenue, and then we'll make you an equity holder. And I doubled revenue in about 6 months. We got there really quickly. And I was like, all right, let's do this thing. He's like, I'm sorry, but I've had my company for 15 years, and I can't just sign over some of it to you because we have had a good run for a few months. And I was like, well, why don't we start another company together as partners? And, we'll be 50-50 partners. We'll grow this new thing, and off we go. And, I made every mistake you can make, right? I didn't have the contractor's license. He had an MBA and a finance degree, and he had the contractor's license. And so I'm like sales and marketing, and he's production. And off we go, starting this other company. We selected a vertical called concrete restoration. Have you ever even heard of that?
Concrete restoration?
Yeah. So in Florida, we've got all these condos that line the coast, and the salt air seeps in, it rusts the rebar. The rebar expands, it cracks the concrete. You've got to get that fixed. It's a technical necessity, right? The structural integrity of the building is compromised. So it's a technical, high dollar, high margin industry, which is why we selected it. And I think we were on our third or fourth project. and the floor in the rec room dropped a foot overnight. And what had happened was there was a water main that had burst beneath the slab.
Oh boy.
And it just washed away a bunch of soil and the slab collapsed. The project engineer said, hey, we need to hire a sinkhole company to come in here and help us lift the slab back, and then they'll fill it in with something, it'll be fine. So as the general contractors on the job, we needed to find the subcontractor who could do this work.
Yeah.
And we saw it was like 2 men in a truck or global powerhouse company. Like you hire them to build a bridge or a dam, or it's 2 guys and some shovels. There was no in between there. And so I thought, that's the vertical we're going to expand into. And so we pivoted away from concrete restoration, and we grew one of the fastest growing companies. We were on the Inc. 500 for 4 consecutive years. We built a really profitable, just joyful enterprise to run.
In something that really, is so outside of what you do right now.
Yes and no. It actually was a really good. It was a really good ground to develop the skills that became what I do now. So think about this, right? If you were selling the kind of projects we were, your point of contact for the job was the project engineer. And you'd have to stay in touch with this person over long periods of time, right? Like a municipal project might send an RFP, and then 2 or 3 years later, they're finally awarding the contract.
Yeah.
So how do you stay in touch with that person for 2 or 3 years? Hi, Jared, what's the status of the contract? Hi, Jared, what's going on with the project? Hey, Jared, any updates on what's good?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to drive people absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And so I just started sharing like these fun and friendly stories as they were happening. And I built actual relationships with these people instead of just trying to sell them or just trying to get them to hire us for the project.
These people who are in kind of a job that is very just mundane, just, next up, all right, here we go, like that kind of a thing. You were still trying to build a relationship.
Oh, I absolutely was. And I would say that, it was also great prep for working with the real estate community because they drink almost as much as realtors do.
Oh my God. That is blasphemous. Okay.
Oh, God. We used to sponsor golf tournaments, and like we do deep sea fishing trips. We had so much ridiculous fun with our clients, and the project engineers and the insurance adjusters are just don't you have fun with people wherever you go? I do.
Yeah.
I do. I found people I loved in that industry, people I love in real estate.
Did you, okay, so I'm going to get back on this, but I have a question regarding that. Because of your history, the 2 parents drinking, the 2 whatever, have you ever had an issue being around alcohol?
My nickname in college was 2 Beer Dan. I just had a limit. I wasn't going to become my parents. That was it. 2 beers and I'm done.
I thought it was a minimum.
That was the ceiling, Jared, not the floor.
I thought it was a minimum. No,
Yeah.
so you've never though. So you see people like I've got a good friend of mine actually who won't touch it, never has because of what he saw with his parents. In your situation though, you're able to be around it. And look, you and I know each other well. We'll go out and have a good time, whatever. But I don't think there's ever been a point where it's like either one of us have had a problem or anything. Like I've never looked at you as someone who's like got a problem. Don't look at Tom. Okay. Yeah. This is actually an intervention, right?
Yeah.
So you had no problem though being around it. Like that never like some other people that never came with you.
We are not other people.
Correct.
Like, I am not my parents, right? I don't think this was like a genetic compulsion they had that they could pass on to me.
Gotcha.
I think the way they processed the experiences of their own lives, they needed to medicate themselves for that, and alcohol was the easy way to forget about their pain.
Gotcha. Okay, so it wasn't a. That's interesting to hear. I think for a lot of people that wasn't a thing for you. Good to go. Switching back over, what did you end up doing with that company?
I exited. Yep.
So you burned it to the ground.
That's right. Absolutely. And along the way, we started some other companies. Burned it to the ground.
Maybe you should actually define.
No, we
for
actually
people.
burned it to the
Tom's
ground.
like, oh, he burned it to the ground.
That's right.
He did.
Next. Yeah.
Imagine like a mob movie.
Yeah.
Slowly walking away.
I am done with this. Yeah, he walks away like Stallone. I'm using examples he'll understand. He's from a different generation.
So I exited that company in a different way. It was kind of cool, actually, because, if you think about the stages of a business's development, right? And this is Robert Kiyosaki, right? You're trading your time for money, right? And so on and so forth. Well, we were at the point where I was no longer necessary to the daily operation of the company.
Yeah.
And we needed some things that we couldn't find. Like, for example, if you're filling out paperwork to get permits in a municipality and you make a mistake, that might mean it's months again before you get your permit approved. Like, that was a real problem. So we wanted to find some software solution where we could enter the project information once accurately, and then it would fill out all those forms for us. We couldn't find that. So I hired a software engineer and we built it. And this was my first foray into software entrepreneurship. We completed the product. We used it ourselves very successfully. It saved us a ton of time. Everything was more efficient. It was just really cool. And so I would, my contractor buddies, I'm like, take a look at this thing we built. What do you think? And a few of them were like, that's awesome. Can I use it? And I was like, sure, here you go. And, after a couple of those conversations, I thought, wait a minute, this is probably a business. And so this is before I really knew how to build a software company.
Yeah.
And I made so many mistakes.
That's why by the way, that's to me why it's so interesting, is because you go from this thing, which is basically like construction. Yeah. And I know you in this world now of the guy who's like the SaaS guy and the software and the that whole thing. And so that whole dynamic of how that gets there is, I think, to the outside world kind of strange. It's actually not strange to me. As somebody who has a portfolio of companies, does different things, does whatever. I think the outside world views people like you, people like me, other people, and they kind of put them in these little, oh, that's that, because it's easier for their brain to understand that. And what they don't understand is that's not that. Yeah. That is the result of what I actually am. That's how I manifested it there. Right. But I can manifest it here with the same principles. And so when you said what you said about the connection between doing that and then, being in theater, then being an entrepreneur, and now I'm in the real estate space and whatever, and you're like, well, actually, the stuff I learned, I use. That makes complete sense to me. Like a complete.
Part of this is just.
But the outside world, I don't think it does.
It's total Gen X in a way, right? Because, you were left with ridiculous amounts of freedom compared to what most kids experience today. And there was no sense of, oh, you can't figure something out or you're not supposed to do it. If we wanted to jump off the roof with umbrellas in our hands, we were going to do it. There was no one there to say no. Yeah. Right? And I mean, you learn pretty quick from that experience exactly how stupid
Come
it
home
is,
when it gets
right?
dark.
But it just didn't occur to me not to try to pursue a fascination. Yeah. Like one of my favorite piece of parenting advice I've ever received was from a dad at a soccer game. We're watching our kids play and just striking up a conversation. He asked me, well, what's your experience playing? I'm like, none. He's like, oh, that's great that you're here and your son's doing this. And I was like, yeah, I think so. He's really fascinated by it. And he goes, that reminds me, you should feed that fascination. Whatever your kids are interested in, feed it. Yeah. Find ways to help them experience the things they're already interested in. And we did that with our 3 kids. We've absolutely lived that. Yeah. And I've realized that it's actually what I was doing through all these different businesses. Yeah. Like you just get fascinated by it. You're like, ooh, this is so cool. I want to do more. I want to know more. I want to get involved. Yeah. And next thing you know, it's like, well, gosh, now other people are asking me for help with this thing. That should probably be a business.
How cool is that, though? I mean, to me, that is the side of being an entrepreneur that is exciting. That's the side of being an entrepreneur because you don't know where it's going to take you, what you're going to do. But the idea that you can actually monetize around, because I think some of the worst advice that's given out is follow your passion. Look, my kid loved Legos. He's probably not going to make a living. You know what I'm saying?
And yet, you know what? He might learn a skill from those Legos that's useful, like creative problem solving or discipline, or
1,000%. But the idea that we get to, on some level, have that childlike fascination, that childlike and then use the other part of our brain to figure out how to monetize that and help others with it and serve them with it. But now we also get to do this. And then it's like painting a wall where you start and all of a sudden you get to the end and you see your finished product. There's this part of it where you get to build this thing that then becomes something that's then serving people, that then you can exit, or you can just keep going with it. That literally there was nothing there, and then look at this. Like now there's something, and this happened because of the mixture of my fascination with, on top of that, the entrepreneurial know-how and the building blocks of it and the whatever. There's something so cool about that I think really fires up people like me and you, where it's like the idea of that, the potential of what could be built tomorrow that we're not doing today.
Yeah.
There's something really cool about that, Have you, what are you thinking about? Why'd you look off like that?
I'm smiling and nodding and thinking about that because, like, just having the mindset where you're even open to that is really unusual.
Yeah.
I don't think most people are alive and awake to what the potential is that's all around them.
Yeah.
And that's, like, I so much believe in this. I have to just share it. That core belief I shared at the beginning, that whatever it is we want to achieve in our lives, the fastest way to do it is through relationships.
Yeah.
It just is, right? That's why we're here today.
Yeah.
Like, if we didn't build that friendship all those years ago,
Yeah.
there's no possibility we're here helping each other.
You're not
right?
tripping
There's
over
none.
a suitcase in my house.
Hey guys, this podcast is brought to you by Jared James Enterprises, right? Coaching and training, guys. If you're watching this and you need coaching, you need training, you're in the real estate space, if you're a brokerage and you need overall training for your overall company, you're looking to hire someone, any of those types of things, we do it all. Make sure you just check out jaredjamestoday.com. Really try to stay on the cutting edge of everything that's going on in the industry. So coaching, training, you need accountability, guys. We know that 23% of people, 9% of people are going to reach their goals this year. 23% are going to stop within a week. 43% are going to stop within a month. You need to not only know your why, you need to understand how you're going to get there, and you need accountability to get there. So coaching and training, jaredjamestoday.com. This is also brought to you by Cleared and Closed. Okay, check out clearedandclosed.com. Clearedandclosed.com. We offer transaction management. No matter where you are in the world, we will create a custom list of different things that we'll do for you depending on what kind of a state, what kind of a province, what kind of a place you're in, a custom workflow for you. You'll have your very own transaction coordinator who is absolutely amazing. I'm telling you that you will love them. We're offering to you your first transaction for free. So if you're watching this, you're in real estate, you need to create leverage. You need to build that infrastructure that other people want to tell other people about. So we'll give you your first transaction free. Just mention this podcast. Get on that, do a consult, go to clearedandclosed.com. And last but not least, this podcast is brought to you by First Up with a Y, FYRSTUP.com. I'm not going to ask to hear that in a sentence or with a verb, but firstup.com, FYRSTUP.com. If you're watching this and you're a broker or you're an agent and you have a broker, especially right now, low inventory, all the things that are happening, people becoming more mobile, you need to have this at your in your tool belt. Everything right now about buyer agency and everything else going on. One of the number one ways that you can get someone to sign with you, sign a buyer agency agreement, is to provide more value. And what's better than to be able to say that you have a proprietary list of listings that nobody else has access to, which is what you have with First Up. What First Up does is it really digitizes that traditional whiteboard, where all of those listings from the time where you sign them with the seller to the time that they hit the MLS, that time in between, you're allowed to promote those within the brokerage. And so what if you had a tool within your brokerage where every time those listings were added in that in-between time, it not only notified every agent in your office, but also buyer matched. And it let them know when they have a buyer who matches, and the listing agent lets them know there's a buyer with another one of the agents in your office that has somebody who matches that, and now you're able to cross-promote or and talk to each other and potentially sell that property earlier in a completely compliant manner, okay? So you're talking about, better communication, you're talking about double-ended deals, you're talking about a lot of things that are going to bring more ROI, return on investment, for such a small investment that First Up is. If you don't have it, somebody else in your area is going to get it. So FYRSTUP, firstup.com. Get on a consult, get that before your area is sold out. Now back to the show.
And so where do those relationships live? It's in conversation,
Yes.
right? If we don't talk, if we don't text, if we don't reach out every now and then, I guess it's, does Jared still like me? I never hear from him. Like, what happened to Dan? Where'd he go? Why doesn't he reach out anymore?
It's probably half my friends, just so you know.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think, at your stage, there's an assumption that, Jared's, he's got such a big audience now. It's like he doesn't have time for me. And yet, as a friend, I've never felt that way. Like,
Good.
I've always felt like you've got absolutely whatever time is needed for the people you care about.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah,
Right? That's
very
huge.
much.
So let's put these two things together and then cap it off with the third, right? If we agree that whatever we want to achieve is more easily accomplished through relationship, and that those relationships live inside conversation, doesn't it make sense that the level of success we aspire to is just a simple equation? How many conversations do I need to have to get there?
Right.
Right? And I'm always open to having that conversation. I never know where it's going to be. I talk to everybody. If I'm in line with someone, I start a conversation. If I'm in an elevator, I start a conversation.
You are like that.
I am like that. Absolutely, I am.
Yeah, you are.
Annoyingly so.
I mean, look, it's funny because I think the people watching this right now, I'm not like that, everybody, just so you know. I am, once I'm away from the people I know best, or I'm at an event where I got to be around people, or I'm out or whatever,
Right.
I retreat. Like, I'm like, whatever. But you are a natural, like, out there talking, doing this, I see some of the stuff you do, some of the conversations you have. You go on everything you're invited on. You're like, I was invited to this, I went and did it. I was invited to this, I went and talked to these people.
I am the guy who says yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get on the plane. I will do
Yeah.
that. And I also have to say,
I admire that.
it's pretty cool that it appears natural, because it's really not.
Interesting.
Like, going back to this life trajectory and story, anybody who moved as much as I did as a kid, it's really easy to become completely self-contained.
Yeah.
You do not want to be the freaking new kid, right?
Yeah.
You do not want to have to stand up in front of that class again and say who you are and where you're from and why you moved here. You just don't freaking want that at all. So there was a long period of my life where I had no interest in that whatsoever.
So funny that's what stands out to
I
you.
would just completely stay self-contained. Why bother making friends? We're just going to move
Just
in a
gonna
few
move
months
again.
anyway.
Yeah.
And back then, it wasn't like social media held us together.
Ah, you're so right.
It was like when you moved, your friends were dead.
Dude.
It was like constant.
Dude, I still remember. So I lived in 6 different states growing up, okay? I remember my friends from Washington State who were, when I say my friends, they were my best friends. Like, I thought we were going to be lifelong forever. I remember driving away, and they were on their bike, just following along the car, and we just thought, well, this is just a see you later.
Right.
No, it wasn't. It was. You're right, man, because you didn't have. If you remember, man, for any of you watching from a different generation, you would call a voicemail, the answering machine, and at some point in the day, they would check back in on that answering machine. This is before pagers, this is before text message, this is before, so when you look at today's generation with beyond all of that, now social media, where, I was talking to my son yesterday, and he got out of school. I now officially have a senior, by the way.
Congratulations.
Which makes me feel like a senior. He says to me, I'm like, so what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to be on the beach. I'm going to hit the gym. He's got an internship coming up. And he says to me, but most of my friends aren't out of school yet. And I'm sitting there going, so wait, are you skipping class? What are you talking about, most of your friends? And then it hit me. They're so interconnected on the social media channels, on their phones, his friends are not just at his school.
Right.
His friends are everywhere because they're so connected now. But we didn't have that. That was a different thing. What are you laughing about?
I'm thinking about our daughter. She's 15, our youngest, right?
Yeah. Not our daughter, just so we're clear. Yeah.
Thank you. That's necessary clarification.
You said we met on Grindr, so I just have to
You keep
clarify.
bringing that up.
Well, I had to
That's
clarify.
interesting. Yeah.
You have your own daughter.
Well, it's true. I do. I have 2 of them.
Yes.
We have 3 kids, daughter, son, daughter.
Yep.
And none of them really wanted to learn to drive. right? So Emily's 15. She passed she got her permit, but let you drive. She just doesn't want to get behind the wheel. And I think about that, right? Because when I grew up, the ability to drive our own car was freedom. And for our kids, freedom is in their palm, right? They can escape right there into social media, into apps and games. And we needed a different kind of freedom then.
Wow.
So
do you? I remember going when I got my license, and I would ask my mother, "Do you need bread and milk?" And I don't mean at the same time. I mean, I'm going to go buy bread. I'm going to bring it home. And then I'm going to go back for milk.
That's right.
Because for me, just the freedom of driving down the road.
Yeah.
But by the way, my kids still feel that. They couldn't wait to do that. I was talking to my son yesterday, and he called me. He's walking to the car last day. Dad, I'm done. He's like, I'm a senior. How's that feel? Whatever. And he's talking about summer, and I just said, Bud, how good is that ride going to feel leaving that school right now, knowing you're heading into summer? Yeah. And he goes, oh, there's nothing like it. Like, there's just, and I'm just vicariously living through, because I remember that, like how great that is. But bring it back here, because there's some parts I want to make sure we don't skip. So that you then created this software that served your needs in the construction field, and then other people started doing it too. Would you say that was the beginnings of a CRM? Would you say that was a different type of software? What would you call that?
So I didn't intentionally set out to build a CRM system.
Right.
It was more document management than anything. But think about what you put in a document.
Yeah.
It's contact information.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially, it was kind of like a CRM. And so we thought, well, let's add some notes fields. Let's just keep our project notes here. Why log into multiple places, right? What we need is a time tracking system. How much time are we spending on projects? I just kept expanding this thing.
How are you expanding, though? You're not a coder.
No, but I am a creative, and I have some technical skills. So, if you work in construction, you get very accustomed to envisioning how you want something to be.
Yeah.
And then you hire the right people to make it so.
Yeah.
Right? So software development is fairly similar. If you have absolute certainty about what you want something to do, you can find engineers capable of making it do that.
That's what I was looking for. So
right.
you found engineers that could go and build what it was that you wanted. You weren't the coder yourself. You were like, hey, here's what I need.
Right.
And then you were building onto that. And so even just that, as I'm saying that out loud, this is where you and I are so similar, in the sense that I know that world. I'm like, I don't have a clue how to do that. I don't whatever. And there's not even the option of, well, then I guess we don't do it. It's just like,
well, how do we get it done?
Who do we get to get that?
It's just another challenge.
It's just another, and we don't even, and you're right when you said, I don't think everybody thinks like that. I can remember the first product that I built that required developers. Mm-hmm. There wasn't even like a speed bump in the sense that I'm not a developer. It was just, that's a part we're going to have to fill. Well, then that's a part, like, it's just, it's like begin with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, it's like it's already done. Like you made an interesting point earlier, and you talked about Michelangelo.
Right.
And you said how he looks at that rock, and he's like, he just, what did you say? He
released
the whatever.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why you would look up to someone like that is that in the mind of every entrepreneur, and any entrepreneur worth their salt, is that same thing where once they see it, even when it's not there, it's already, I'm just releasing it into what is already exist. Like it's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's like, it actually makes sense. When you first said Michelangelo, I'm like, Michelangelo.
Yeah, why?
That does make sense though, from the perspective of an entrepreneur. Anyway, so you build this product.
I did, of course, but back to the art and the business combination, I think having an arts background has made me a much better entrepreneur. I think so much of the way I see the world was shaped by that experience. Yeah. And what I learned along the way has been very, very helpful, right? Yeah. An artist doesn't tend to see limitations that other people see. Yeah. Entrepreneurs are very much the same way, right? Yeah. We don't ask what are the rules. We ask, how can we accomplish this thing, right? It's a different framework of questioning. Right? And in one artistic experience, like there's this debate about where does the art exist? Yeah. Is it in the paint on the wall after you
Yeah.
hung it?
There you go.
Or is it in the experience of creating it, right? And that's part of why I'm so addicted to entrepreneurship, is because it's that constant discovery of what you're capable of.
Yeah.
It's the beautiful moment where you call into existence something that never existed before,
Yeah.
and other people find value there. That to me is just amazing.
Yeah.
It feels like magic.
That's what I was saying before. I said an entrepreneur, it's like you don't know. You wake up and you might be doing something you hadn't have done. You're going to create something that isn't there right now. That begs the obvious question. Do you believe that entrepreneurs are artists?
I think an entrepreneur can be an artist. I think some of the best ones certainly are. Richard Branson comes to mind.
Oh, God.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, think of that story, which his origin story is so well known. I'll just briefly tell it. A flight was canceled. There's a problem that needs to be solved. Next thing you know, he's starting an airline.
Yeah.
I
mean,
it's
good
like,
God.
Right? It's just, how can we solve this problem? It's interesting. Where, when you've got a financial boot on your throat, which, parts of my life I absolutely did, the first priority is get the boot off your throat. How can I make sure I'm not hungry tonight?
Yeah.
Like, how can I make sure that they don't shut off the electricity tomorrow? Right? When you're at that point, it's hard to really tap into all the gifts that exist for you when you're open to them.
Yeah.
Right? When you've got your basic needs met, and you feel certainty that you've got room to make a mistake and everything's still going to be all right.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you're capable of.
Isn't that crazy?
It really is.
This is like, again, for everybody listening, like this is why you and I get up, because I relate to all of this. You know what I mean? And by the way, I think that on some level, we always have the financial boot on our throat. It's everybody's level is different, but Bill Gates still worries about money on a different level.
For sure. For sure. I used to worry about, hey, if I go wait tables tonight and I don't make $56 in tips.
That's exactly what I mean.
Like, they're shutting my stuff off tomorrow.
Right.
I got to handle this.
Right.
But, thinking about the stages of that worry as they advance, there's this really critical moment in there, I think, Jared. When you recognize internally that it's really up to you.
Yeah.
Like knowing that $56 thing, right? And then making it.
Yeah.
There's a confidence that develops here.
Yeah.
Right? This is so important. A lot of people don't have that rock solid trust with themselves. They don't, right? Because, as a society, we do things where we're like, yeah, I'm going to save money, and then we don't, right? We spend it. I'm going to lose weight, and then, we don't. Like, I'm going to eat right. I'm going to go to the gym, and then we don't. Like, as a society, that's a very real condition for everyone.
Yeah.
We go through this sequence of events where we start with intentions, right? And then we take actions on those intentions. We encounter a little bit of pain. Oh, I went on a diet and I'm hungry. Who knew that would happen? Like, the whole key here is that you've got to embrace the suck, as they say in the Army. You've got to expect that there's going to be some pain. You've got to expect there's going to be some challenge. And then you're not surprised by it.
Yeah.
And it just frees you to work on a different path.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I got asked to speak to a group of boys who are in really hard situations. This was a really special thing. I was very honored to be invited. Darren Jacklin invited me to speak to this group of boys in Canada. And of course I said yes, because that's what I do. And
you're gonna get all sorts of responses off of this.
well,
Come be on my podcast. You come talk to my group.
maybe we'll see. Yes. Yeah. So Darren asked me to speak to this group of boys, and I kind of told them my story, my journey. I'm like, look, wherever you are is exactly where you need to be, right? That's if you're dissatisfied with your life, man, that's fuel. That, like Oscar Wilde said, the greatest, the first step in the progress of a man or a nation is discontentment.
Yeah.
So I've always thought, well, man, I need to embrace that. I need to get excited about that. And there was this boy who was part of the group, and we're doing the Q&A afterwards, and he said, I appreciate your story. I just don't see any possible way it could work for me. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of curious about that. And I said, what are some of the things in your life right now that you're not satisfied with? And he's like, well, like my room is always a mess. I've got dirty clothes everywhere. Like, I live in a pigsty and I know I should clean it up, but I just don't. I tell myself I will, but I start and I just get so overwhelmed. And I thought, this is a person who just hasn't built that kind of trust with themselves where when they say they're going to do something, they absolutely know that they are, right? There's that basic level of discipline that we can't assume everyone has. As business owners, we'd like to assume it, and yet a lot of people don't have that. So I asked him to call me every single day, and I wanted him to just pick up one, like grab a sock off the floor, just one, right? And call me or text me and let me know that you did it, right? Let's just consistently
Incremental.
get in the habit of saying, you know what, I said I would do it and I actually did.
Yeah.
Like that is the first thing we've got to have absolute
Creating a new
confidence
belief
in.
system.
Like, when you tell yourself you will do it and you actually know that you will, that's a different way of living than most people experience.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Most people want to, they intend to, they hope to, someday it'll happen, and yet they don't do the things that they could do because they're used to letting themselves down.
Yeah. They become okay with it.
Yep.
God. So I want to come into where you are today. So what did you do with that company that you had, that you built off of the construction company, which became the quasi CRM, whatever? What did you do with that company?
Well, we got really lucky, quite frankly. I'd had this goal to retire at 40. Like my thought was, I'm going to put a bunch of money in the bank and then I'll go pursue this arts career.
Yeah.
I promised myself at a
Okay.
younger age, right? So what happened with that first little tech product is it morphed into being a white label software solution. We would take our branding off, we'd replace it with a client's branding, and we found a niche in franchise sales. So franchise organizations would hire us.
Yeah.
We would fill it full of everything they wanted it to have, and then they'd roll it out to their franchisees who would log in once or twice and never come back, right? Sound familiar in real estate? It definitely does. So that experience was really interesting because our largest customer's largest competitor approached us saying that they wanted to work with us. And somehow that word got back to our largest client. They were like, well, that doesn't work for us. We don't want you helping our competitor. That's not okay. They weren't willing to do an exclusivity deal, pay a premium for that. So they offered to write a check to acquire the company. And I was happy to say yes and accept that check.
Yeah.
And then I did like a lot of the stupid things people who have that experience do, right? I didn't have a plan for what was next. I bought a sailboat. I joined a country club. I'm like playing golf and sailing. Hey, Jared, what are you doing today? I'm working, Dan, like the rest of the world. I can't play golf. Can't go on the boat today, Dan. Like, that sort of thing was happening. And a few months in, I just realized what a ridiculous goal that was.
To retire by 40.
That it was just completely wrong for me. And,
Yeah.
today, I can't see myself ever wanting to retire.
Me either.
Like,
Me either.
why would I not do the thing that gives me so much joy
Yeah.
and provides so much value? Like, come on.
And it might be something
you know?
different. See, one of the things we notice here, though, is that you were in many different businesses, industries, whatever it is, but it might be something different. But you need to flex that muscle. There's something in you that needs to flex that muscle, that needs to put in the effort, that needs to metaphorically pick up the paintbrush and start to see what's out there for you today.
It's so creative. And sometimes you see in another company, you see they've got all the right ingredients. They just haven't mixed them in the right proportions.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're never going to bake that delicious cake because they're just assembling it wrong.
Right.
Right? And so with just a little bit of experience, with the right amount of advice, with the right amount of tutoring, coaching, mentorship, you can help them break through to these next areas. And that's been a very great gift in this phase of my life, is serving as an investor and advisor for startups.
Yeah.
And, in the prop tech space, it started with a company called Better Voicemail.
Yep.
It was really cool.
knew-
Those guys
knew-
were
knew 'em
awesome.
well, yep.
Yeah, they were awesome, and they were successly acquired. Right?
By
That-
Best
that was
Voicemail?
cool.
Or
Yeah, naturally.
They were-
Naturally. And then my buddy Chris Dreyer. Love Chris, love his company Revaluate. I've been advising Chris and Revaluate since the day they started. That was really cool.
nice.
Christy Belt Grossman, I love her so dearly. She's such a bright light. The world needs more Christy Belt Grossman.
Wow.
And she's the founder of Ops Boss Coaching.
Yep.
So she's the person who helps a real estate admin like elevate to
Yeah. director
of operations.
Yeah.
It's really cool what she's doing.
That's cool.
One of my favorite clients, companies, in fact, I've taken a significant equity position here, is an all 50 states LIFRO, license for referral only brokerage, called Realty Connect.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is just so cool, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of agents, they get their license, they think real estate career is going to be one thing, and then they discover that, maybe through no fault of their own, they just aren't, they're not going to build a career they wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? So they can put their license in referral status, hang it with us, and we'll help nurture their database and generate referrals. They can still earn referral commissions.
Yeah.
And it's just a really neat thing to be able to help with. There's a really cool startup right now I'm advising out of LA called StackWrap. And like everybody remember that name, they're going to be huge. StackWrap takes a big problem that team owners and broker owners have. Think about onboarding a new agent. You've got all this new technology that they have to learn. Well, StackWrap puts it behind one login, right? It's not just an SSO thing. It's like having it's like an intranet 4.0. It's just so super cool to have everything integrated there. So it helps with agent adoption, it helps with usage, it helps broker owners and team owners communicate what they need to everyone because they can put it right in front of them every single day. It's really cool. So I've mentioned all those side projects, right? My main project is
I was
one.
gonna say. So I've known you for years as Happy Grasshopper.
Yeah.
You would go around the country and have people eat chocolate-covered grasshoppers.
No, that's not true. They're crickets.
Crickets. I'm sorry.
Can't eat the mascot.
Okay. You can't eat the mascot?
You can't eat the mascot. That's right.
So that's on the table? I'm sorry.
They're chocolate-covered crickets, man.
Yeah, I think that's what was available.
They're fully approved by the FDA of Thailand. It's fine.
Tell me that that's not all that was available. Okay? If you could have found grasshoppers, you'd have been serving grasshoppers.
No, they're too big. There's no way someone would eat one. We do this thing. We call it the Eat a Bug, Get a Shirt Challenge. So wherever we appear around the country, whatever events we're at, and we're definitely sponsoring the Jared James annual advance this year. Super stoked
We're going to get into that. All right. Now, is it
Super stoked.
any old bug? You don't want to do your mascot, so is it possible there's a roach in there?
No,
or
it's
is
a
it
cricket,
possible?
man. It's a chocolate-covered cricket.
I'm just playing with
and
you.
And a lot of cultures eat crickets. I fully confess, we were giving them out for about 4 years before I tried my first one. And when you eat it, if you think Kit Kat, this is a Kit Kat bar.
Like
it
a
tastes just
purring?
like a
Oh, like a
freaking
Kit Kat, like the
bar.
chocolate.
Like
Okay.
the chocolate bar. It really does. It makes you think they must make them with crickets.
Yeah, we
It's
all
weird.
thought you just went kitten on us. I'm not gonna lie. That's what that just sounded like. Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna get into that other stuff, but like with Happy Grasshopper.
Yeah.
Tell us really quickly, because I want to hit another side of this.
Yeah.
Tell us really quickly what Happy Grasshopper does other than giving
Yeah.
out dead insects.
Okay. So, think about this. Everyone listening to this right now has a CRM.
Yeah.
And I bet if we could ask every single person, how satisfied are you with it? Like, how well organized is your CRM? How well is it producing the opportunity that you'd like it to be? Most people have the technology, but they don't get the results from the technology.
Yeah.
Because there's a huge difference between being able to organize contacts and being able to start the conversations you need to have. right? To convert more leads, to generate more referrals,
Right.
to attract and recruit more of the right agents to your teams or your brokerages. So that's what we do. I have a whole team of writers. I've got a wonderful technology team. We integrate with practically every prop tech CRM you can think of.
Are you on Zapier?
Well, of course. Yeah, of course. But we also have native integrations with things like Follow Up Boss and Lofty and so on and so forth. We're
Yeah.
connected to practically everything.
Are you a big believer in lead measures, lag measures? Like, what's your core belief around conversations?
Well, you're asking about two different things. So lead and lag measures.
Right.
Let's go down the KPI
Yeah.
rabbit hole. There are
Let's do
three
it.
KPIs that really matter in real estate from my perspective. Okay, KPI 1. Think about this, agents. Your KPI 1 is the number of opportunities per month you have to sign a contract. Now, a contract might be a listing agreement, might be a buyer's rep agreement, could be an offer, right? Just keep tabs of that. Your KPI 1, how many opportunities do you have to sign in a given month, right? KPI 2 is number of contracts that are actually signed. And then KPI 3 is number of transactions closed, right? So those three KPIs really tell you a lot about the health of an individual person's business.
What do you consider an opportunity? So you said KPI 1 is opportunities to sign a contract. What do you consider an opportunity?
An opportunity,
How do we define that?
It could be a listing agreement, a buyer's rep agreement, or it could be an offer. Those are the three things we want to keep track of.
So an opportunity would be being at a listing appointment, being out with a buyer, and so those are the opportunities, meaning it may or may
Yeah.
not happen, but this is the opportunity. Is that correct?
Sure. So if I'm going to a listing appointment, I'm bringing the documentation so you
Right.
could sign the listing agreement.
So that
That's an
counts as one
opportunity to get it
opportunity.
signed.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
If I'm meeting with buyers, and I mean, in today's environment, there are some states like Virginia where buyer's rep agreements have been the norm for a long, long time.
18 out of the 50 states
Everybody's
you're
used
supposed
to
to,
it.
yeah.
I mean, sure. And yet, a lot of states are like, what the heck? I don't know how this whole buyer's agency thing is going to work.
Right.
Right? So the new normal is we need to be prepared
Correct.
to have people sign those agreements. You
Right.
have to have a presentation ready to go and talk about it.
Right.
So every time you meet with a buyer that you haven't met with before, that's an opportunity to have that agreement signed.
Gotcha.
Right? It absolutely is.
Good.
And then when you're working as a listing agent, you're working as a buyer's agent, you're also getting offers, right? You're making offers, you're receiving offers. Those are also opportunities to have a contract signed, right? So we want to keep track of those three things for comparison's sake. Like,
Yeah.
let's just, so the math is easy. Let's say in a 30-day month, we had 30 opportunities
Yeah.
to have a contract signed. Well, gosh, what if we have 29 of them signed?
Yeah.
The assumption is, what a great agent. You know, they meet with people and they sign the contract. Like, they don't need any help there. But then you add in KPI 3. What if,
Yeah.
only 2 closings happened? Well, maybe that's pipeline, right? Because a buyer's rep agreement, you might need 90 days
Right.
or something for that to show up. That's totally fine. Same on the listing side. But it could also mean that this, hyper-effective person getting all these contracts signed, maybe they're signing buyer's rep agreements with people who never qualify to buy a house. Maybe they're signing listing agreements way above market value where the homes won't sell.
Right.
Right? So having those 3 KPIs and tracking them gives you a ton of visibility into where your agents actually need support.
Yeah. So so I know obviously what you guys do and so I love what you talked about there. You talked about how we've got writers who do this. We are taking advantage of opportunities that exist within your database
Yeah.
that you are missing right now.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
the idea is, look, we know you have a database. We're not replacing your database. We know that you have these things.
Yeah, of course.
But I think you did you do a great exercise, which you'll probably do at the advance as well, where you say, how many of you have a database? How many of you, and you
Right.
go down the line of, how many of you think that you're basically not doing the best job with your database? And I think when all of us are honest, we kind of look and go, oh, yeah, I think he's got me there. That's
Well,
probably...
Find me an NBA center who's a great limbo contestant. Like, the two things rarely go together,
Right.
right? You don't have a great agent who's also great at database.
We were just having this conversation in the car.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's absolutely true. It's like the gifts that make you effective as an agent almost certainly do not include the gifts to be great with database.
We were just talking about the person in the car. So one of my companies is Cleared and Closed, right? The transaction coordination
Cleared
company.
to close.
No, not cleared to close. That is not correct. Cleared and closed. We'll just have to put a little thing underneath there, Tom. But we were talking about you sent over an agent to us. We appreciate that, by the way. I was talking to Chris before we came in here. They just picked up a 26-person brokerage and the whole thing, and we were talking about how the average person is spending 8 to 12 hours per transaction doing this, whatever. That's why people use a transaction coordination company or their individual person from that company or whatever it is. But we were having this conversation, and just basically I was using it from the perspective of, hey, what makes you great at being an agent is why you suck at trying to be your own TC, your own transaction coordinator. They're two completely different profiles. And then you brought up a point that I hadn't fully thought of before, but it was so true. And it was that same truth, which is what makes these people great at being an agent is what makes them not good at managing their database, which is so unfortunate, because then you get people like me that are, especially right now, talking about everything going on in the industry. And we're like, hey, guys, we're so focused on everything that's changing. We need to focus on what hasn't changed. This can be a focus at the advance. What hasn't changed? Right. You need to go in on that. And so you have people like me saying that and saying database, database, database. And they're like, yeah, he's right. Yeah. But then when they come back to the center or whatever, they're like, they're gonna find something else to do.
Can we get real about why that is?
Let's hear it.
It's really straightforward at scale, right? We're nurturing 37 million contacts for people today. We've worked with tens of thousands of agents all across North America.
Yeah.
So we see the same things over and over and over again. Here's what most agents struggle with. Database is kind of a source of guilt and shame. Like they know it should be getting their attention, and yet they're finding it challenging to really figure out what to say, who to say it to, how frequently to say it.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, the pressure to come up with content. Oh, and then all these systems say, well, we'll just provide the content. And then you look at the content.
Here's a recipe for apple pie.
You're like, oh, I can't do that. That's not me. That doesn't fit me, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, you know what? I really am going to commit to creating really good content. But, oh, my database is so disorganized.
Yeah.
Like, how do I manage all that? So we've got to start with organization first, right? No matter what system you have, your contacts are in the same 6 places everyone else's are.
Yeah.
They're in your phone, your email, your MLS, your CRM, and social media. Right? Phone, email, MLS, CRM, lead sources, and social media.
Yeah.
That's where your contacts are. So if you're feeling like, oh, I need to spend hours and hours and hours figuring out my database, what you really need to do is export from all of those sources and then merge, title, case correct, all the contact records. You're going to learn so much more about each contact in that process. So this is job one we do for our members, by the way.
Right.
Because like I might be in your phone as Dan.
Yeah.
Dan. Do you want a phone number?
Do you want to tell them what I'm in your phone as?
No, Justin Timberpuddle, I do not.
I'm in your phone as Justin Timberpuddle. I just want to be clear, everybody, that's not a joke.
That it's not a joke.
I'm the knockoff Justin Timberlake.
I mean, come on, look at Jared. Was he not in a boy band in the 90s? Come on, you know he was. He was. You're not a Timber Pond. You're not a Timber Puddle.
I'm just saying, I was touring in a boy band and you were on the theater. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's
okay?
right.
So we both came together, and a beautiful marriage.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Pull it back around. Justin Timberpuddle. All right.
Okay.
So you guys take them, you merge them.
Yeah, you got to start with organization, right?
Yeah.
So, like the example I need to give you, because all of us, you look at your phone, you got a lot of people saved in there where it's just their first name and their number.
Yeah.
If I import those into our system, how would I know what to send those people? I don't, right? So let's imagine we're doing this for a new member. We import people like that. And then we pull in from their lead sources, and we see the same phone number associated now with a first name, a last name, an email address. Ooh, now we know more. Should we assume that person's a lead? Maybe. Let's export from the MLS. Maybe there's a past transaction with that same contact information. Well, now we know what the price point was, when it closed, what the address is. We're building more information in the database.
Yeah.
And so this is what we need at scale to automate delivery of the right message to the right people at the right time. We have to start with organization.
Yeah.
So that's job one.
Yeah.
Job two is content. And who you are matters, right? It absolutely matters. You talk to someone,
Yeah.
and they insist, oh my God, you have to work with my friend, this agent. They're the only person you can hire, right? Ask yourself this if you're listening to this. Have you received a referral, right? If the answer is yes, it means you've done a great job for somebody.
Right.
There's no other reason to get the referral. So you're an expert on your intentions, how you wanted to serve them. They're the expert on how well you actually did serve them, right? So you think about all the leads that an agent generates. To a lead, you're just another agent. Come on, open the door, charge me too much. Let's get this over with, right? I mean, it's ridiculous how the public regards the real estate profession. So you've got to teach those strangers what your past clients in Sphere really value about you.
Yeah.
Right? That has to happen as part of the content process. So in our case, we assign a staff writer, we interview them, we leverage the talent of our writing staff to make sure the content is in the tone and the voice of each of our members, and then we leverage our AI. So I mentioned 37 million contacts, right? That's way more contacts than we can make sense of.
Yeah.
The reporting from that is so huge that the AI tells us more of this, less of that, right? Here's what you should do, here's what you shouldn't do. And that's how it's possible for us to actually guarantee our service.
So in essence, though, your customer base is going to be able to take advantage of everything that you're doing for all the rest of the customers, because you're pulling data from that, you're pulling what works, you're pulling from whatever, and
That's
now
right.
they're all
Yeah.
reaping the benefits of what you're seeing with all these other contacts,
That's
right?
right.
And so essentially what you guys do is you contextualize content.
There are a few really interesting things that come from the data sources. Like so many people, they used to stress about what's the best time to send my message.
All the time.
What's
I get
the day
that
of
on
the week?
social.
Like,
when should I post my
yeah,
social?
What's the right time
It's
to
like,
do
why
this
don't you
thing?
just
Yeah.
work on posting something? Because I've seen your profile. Yeah.
The most important thing when it comes to sharing content and all is the relationship between the sender and the recipient. Okay, if I get a message from Jared, my friend Jared, come on.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what your subject line is. Doesn't matter what time of day.
Right, you're deleting
it's
it.
just, it's gone,
Yeah.
right? The point is we all have people in our lives
Yeah.
where they don't have to use any special artifice.
Correct.
They've got the relationship.
That's right.
Right? So why not have that with as many people in your database as possible?
Right.
Right? Why not build to where everyone would want to see your stuff because it's from you and they value you as
Yeah.
an individual. Right?
This is the convo that should happen in front of the advance, by the way.
We'll get there. I can't wait for the advance.
I'm,
because,
as you and I are talking right now, though, I'm actually
Yeah.
thinking to myself, like, this is the valuable stuff that I'm just picturing right now what the people in our programs, the people who show up to the advance, the people, what their business looks like, how much different of a response they're getting, how much value they're getting from their database if they were doing what you're talking about. And I think a lot of people who are listening right now are going, yeah, I don't really do that. Yeah, no,
Right.
And all we do is we focus on how many people are in your database. How many do I have in my database?
Right.
How do I? It's a vanity metric. That's not a real
So
metric.
contacts are worthless. Hear this. Contacts are worthless.
Yeah.
Relationships are priceless.
There you go.
They absolutely
That's the
are.
that is the clippable. Contacts are worthless. Relationships are priceless. You should put that on like the freaking front of your site.
It's the tattoo I don't have.
Oh
right?
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a truism.
That's so good,
and
though.
Like I want to get back to anchoring this for people, right? Because data is really important. It leads the way. It shines the light on the path we need to follow. And yet, who you are absolutely matters. The most important thing in the effectiveness of your content is the relationship between you and the people you're sending it to, right? That's the number one thing. The number two thing is relevancy to the moment in time we're sharing. Hey, happy Valentine's Day, Jared, right? That was months ago. Doesn't land.
Yeah.
Like, not going to work. We have to be relevant to the moment in time we're sharing. And all the work you do on social media is a great example of that. All of those Instagrams where you go live and you've got the green screen with the headline behind you and
Like
you're
what's
commenting
happening.
on this thing that's happening right now.
Yeah.
that's part of why your content is received so
1000%.
I mean, it absolutely is great to see the effectiveness of that, right?
It's funny you say that, because a lot of times those will be done where like people don't even realize, but I'm straight out of the gym or I'm straight out of whatever. Like if you look at those videos, I'm not put together in most of them,
Right.
but it's just I'm in my car or I'm right out of my deck or I'm out of whatever, and I'm just going, this is now.
Yep.
This is not something, hey, in 3 days from now when I'm doing whatever. I'm like, this is a now thing.
Yeah, right.
The timing, you're right. I never thought of it like that, but the timing is so important.
It's relevancy to the now is how I would phrase that for sure, right?
This is such a conversation we should be having at the Advance.
We will. We absolutely will.
Maybe we should do a
by the
combo.
way, if you don't know this, like, dude, 10 years ago was the first Advance. That's ridiculous.
So can we tell?
Blink. How the hell did that happen? 10 years.
I don't know. So can we tell this story? So first off, you've been at every Advance you told me except for one.
Yep.
Can we as we land the plane here, because we have to do your podcast too. Can I tell the real story? So Dan, Happy Grasshopper, is the main sponsor at the Advance. They are the title sponsor, the main sponsor, which I want to be very clear, not because he's my friend, not because I never ask him for anything. Like I'm bad at asking people for anything. People offer me things and I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't whatever. And so can I tell the real story?
Please.
Can I really tell the real story?
I hope so.
Okay. So I had to step out of my house. I was doing some work outside of a Starbucks, and I was on a meeting, whatever, and you text me, and you're like, yo, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm on a meeting. You tried to call me or something. And I said, I'll talk to you. I'll call you later or something. I said, I'm on back-to-backs or something like that. And you wait a little bit, and then you said something about this Advanced sponsorship. And we always have kind of a special thing we do. Dan's a personal friend of mine, whatever, and I tell him, hey, we'll take care of you. Like, we'll get, whatever. And I was going to put you in touch with the people who do, and I was just like, hey, just, we'll take care of you. And then you were like, yo, are you going to let me give you my money this year finally? Or something to that effect. And you're like, I want to be the main sponsor. And I'm on a meeting and whatever, and then I look down and I'm like, huh? And I'm like, are you serious or are you kidding? And you're like, no, I'm completely serious. And I'm like, all right. So then I start worrying because I generally am not handling the sponsorships. I'm like, we have a team who's doing that, and they're out there reaching out to people. And I'm like, oh, crap. Is it already gone? Is it, whatever? So I text my team real quick, and they're like, well, we've got some people we're working on, and I'm meeting with this one tomorrow. I've got meetings with this one. They had like 3 meetings tomorrow that they were going to whatever. And I'm like, well, it's gone. I'm like, it's Dan's. Dan is the main sponsor. And so I can tell you guys, first off, that I don't promote companies that I don't believe in. I have plenty of friends who run companies that I don't talk about their companies. And they can, take from it what they will. You find ways to whatever. I love them, but I just don't think they serve our community. You're somebody I've supported for years because it so fits our message. When you talk about database. And so I would tell anybody who's listening right now, check out Happy Grasshopper. I mean, obviously we want you at the Advance. We're doing our 10-year in Orlando, September 19th and 20th. We want you there. But Dan has really, put his money where his mouth is, so to say. He said, hey, I want to be the main sponsor, and I'm not paying in friendship coins. Like, I want to actually be the main sponsor. And that's not why you're on this podcast.
I got interrupted. I have to interrupt you because, like, one of the advantages, maybe that's not the right word, but from my perspective, right, I get asked to sponsor so much stuff, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I have shoveled tens of thousands of dollars into the cash bonfire.
Yeah.
I once sponsored an event tour, like a national tour. We rolled into Denver, and there were 33 agents in the audience. 33 people. Oof. Like, what the heck? I mean, absolutely crazy. So as vendors, we get asked to sponsor a lot of things that just don't work. And, here I've got, not just a friend in Jared, right? But someone who I legitimately believe is a force for good in our industry, right? We don't always agree about everything.
No.
And yet we can have that conversation.
Yeah.
right? So 10 years ago, it was the first advance. And, you're like, hey, I want you to come and speak. I want you there.
Yeah.
And so we showed up, and at that point in time, there was no sponsorship. It was like just the first thing.
Was that Connecticut?
Let's see how it goes. It was Connecticut. Absolutely it was. Yep.
Connecticut Convention Center.
And do you know there are people who signed up for our services at that event that
Oh
are
my
still our
God.
members today?
Look at that.
Like, absolutely ridiculous, right?
God.
And so, the next year it's in Vegas, and you're like, Dan, you got to come. And I come, and, Vegas. And
Yeah.
and we see all these people who've used our stuff for a year. And
Yeah.
they're like, this was really great. We sign up a bunch more people. And
That's so cool.
The third year, the fourth year.
Yeah.
Like, what I realized was that when I look at how our business has grown,
Yeah.
and I because of our friendship,
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I want you here.
Yeah.
And it feels like an invitation from my friend.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't feel like I was really respecting the economic side of that, because in any relationship, there's got to be some sort of balance, right? And I just feel so incredibly grateful for how your community has helped us grow as a company and a brand. And I felt like it's not enough to just sponsor and show up. Like,
Yeah.
I really want to do everything I possibly can to just pay forward all the
so cool.
gratitude I'm feeling for you guys.
That's so cool. And at our 10-year.
Yeah.
At our
that's
10-year,
cool.
man. How nutty is that? You better be hanging around for the 10-year celebration bash this year. We're doing a party now, Friday night, since we're not in Nashville, we're in Orlando.
Live band?
We got a band coming in.
That's how we do it.
We're going to have a time.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
come on. Mangus will be
look,
there.
I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody here listening right now who remembers the first advance. It was right by JJ's birthday.
Stuff of legend.
And he had the most ridiculous, like a 17-piece kick-ass band.
I mean, we were screaming one more
it was
song.
so much fun.
One more.
We didn't want them to stop.
It was
we
so
literally
good.
didn't. And everybody who was there was like a giant dance party. It was just so
I mean,
cool.
Mangus was dancing with my mom.
Well, yeah.
My mom. I mean, I don't know if I'm over this, Sometimes I see Mangus and I just say, Papa. Oh, God. Anyway, I do appreciate the heck out of that, man. And I was thrilled when I saw that. I was thrilled to have you as part of that, because it is our 10 years, so that's always a super cool thing. Where do people, if they want to check you out, where do they go?
HappyGrasshopper.com.
Okay.
That's a great place to go for sure.
Easy
Not
enough.
Grindr?
Not Grindr.
Not
Yeah,
Grindr.
I was asking about your profile on
Wow.
Grindr. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, Tom is jumping in now. See,
Yeah,
right now
look at
Dana's
that.
a little thrown off guard because he
Master
thought you were on the same
Splinter
team.
back here.
Yeah, he thought you were on the
Yeah,
same
but
team.
Is Grindr the through line of your podcast, Jared? Is that what
you got
guess
on
it
here? And
is.
apparently it
Yes,
was.
is. Huh.
You know what's funny is about 72% of our audience is going, "What the heck is Grindr?"
Yeah.
Okay. They're like, it's talking about a sub
no,
in the
they're gonna
Northeast.
look it up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
Don't look it
hey.
up. Don't look it up.
Better yet, check your husband's phone and see if the
Like, I do like sandwiches.
too
I'm
funny.
gonna go look that up.
Too funny.
Look, I think part of the reason people listen to us is, look, we know our business stuff, but we're also like fun and like, I think it's kind of when you talk about the through line, when you look at me and you look at the people I hang with, people like you and other people, we do not take ourselves too serious. Like if they ever got together with us, I mean, hopefully they'd still listen to us.
Yeah.
But we joke about everything. And I mean everything. Am I wrong?
I don't think humor has borders.
No,
Right?
no.
It just shouldn't.
Oh, we just have fun, man. Like I say all the time, I think there's a problem when you can't joke. Like now there's a problem, But it is it's one of the things I love about the group that I kind of am friends with and know and whatever, is that there's this purity where it's just, look, if you come with any kind of weakness, just expect it's going to get trampled. Like it is, it's going to happen.
I'm thinking about all the many events we've attended together.
Yeah.
Like for probably a decade, we rented the same condo in D.C.,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
You,
yeah.
me, and John Mangus.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was my favorite event of the year.
Yeah.
Every year for the longest time.
so good.
Right? It was just absolutely spectacular to be in that environment where, you're with people you trust.
Yeah.
and you're doing something of value,
Yeah.
and you just know for sure you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
And,
It's a good feeling.
And there's something about we're all highly stressed people. You know what I mean? That's the part that's not talked about. Like, we all have a lot of things we're doing and a lot of things on our mind and a lot of different, like, there's just a lot of, you know, where it's very easy if you're not in the right tribe to allow that to just take you over, and you just become that person. You become the, you know, the Scrooge without Christmas. And there's something about having the right group and having that understands. You just look at each other and you understand. That gives you the freedom to just kind of. Can we just laugh at all this? Can we just
stuck.
joke?
I'm stuck, Jared. I would not describe myself as highly stressed. I would not describe you or John as being highly stressed.
Okay.
Right? It just, like, there's so much negativity I associate with that.
I get that.
Right? I mean, we went to the gym this morning, and Jared tried to kill me with a workout that I wasn't prepared for. Right? I mean, that's the kind of thing you could feel some stress about, right? But just like, you know, these exercises you were doing
Yeah.
that weren't challenging for you, some of them were extremely challenging for me, right?
Right.
Because, like, so that was much more stressful for me than
Right.
it was for you.
Correct.
Right? So now
I
let's
see
take
where you're
that
going.
same
I see
sort of
where you're
example
going.
over to a business world, right?
I'm with you.
My younger self would
Yeah.
be totally stressed and
Yeah.
freaked out with the things I handle today with ease.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So maybe to other people, it feels like what we're doing, what
Yeah.
we're choosing to do would be really stressful.
Yeah.
You know what? If I'm backstage and I'm about to go out in front of a live audience
Yeah.
of hundreds or thousands of
Yeah.
people, I feel fan-freaking-tastic,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I'm so energized by that.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to get out there and make an impact for
Yeah.
people. That's awesome,
Yeah.
right? And yet, you know, a decade ago,
Yeah.
that was like diarrhea time.
Someone
you know?
else would
You're
rather,
just
yeah.
terrified. Like, how did I find myself here?
Yeah.
You know, many people would rather kill themselves than do any kind of public speaking.
Yeah, I think that's
it's like a huge fear.
That'd be a better example than
right?
diarrhea time.
Jared was sharing with me recently that
This is about to not be true, just so
his
you know.
bout of diarrhea.
Yeah, this is what I shared. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
What
I
is
can
wrong
just
with you?
okay. So this part of the podcast clearly won't go live.
Oh no, everything goes live.
Yeah.
everything
Every-
goes live.
every
By the
stuff.
way, though, I do understand what you're saying, and I do agree in the sense that when I say like, I mean like to the outside world, this would seem, you know, but I think we do have a way, almost like what we talked about with entrepreneurs, where they just see an ending and they're like, that's gonna happen no matter what, and you have these blinders on where, you know. When I say stressed, I mean if you were to actually sit down and almost like when you make a pros and cons list, there's plenty of things to be stressed about. Let's put it that way. There are plenty of people who rely on you. There is plenty of financial stress. There's plenty of all of these things. And yet, because of the way that we're built to handle it. We're built to move
I
forward.
say you got to put it in context.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this a little bit too, right? What a freaking privilege it is to have the challenges I have.
That's right.
Like, nobody is shoving me into a gas chamber.
Yeah, so
like,
true.
No one's got a gun to my head over a pit of dead bodies.
Yeah,
like,
so true.
Come on, man. Our challenges are a freaking gift.
Yeah,
Right?
it's so true.
Millions and millions of people who were more talented, more capable, their lives were snuffed out by war and famine and hunger and disease and all sorts of things.
One
that
out of two of
haven't
the
been
kids
my
are going to
burdens,
die.
You know?
Like one of the, you know, it's just like, different world.
Like, I mean, gosh. So context, right? You want to put things
Yeah.
in context. Like, come on, really?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got some new buyer's agency things to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh-oh.
game on.
Gonna have to
Let's
pivot.
freaking go,
Gonna
right?
have to pivot.
Let's go.
Yeah. It's so true, man. I think I said to you when you talk about just how lucky we are. I literally said to you earlier, I had like put up a video or something, and I came over to you, and it had been like 9 minutes or something, and there was all these thousands of views, and I said, "What the heck is this? This is insane! Like this is like for me, like what? Like." But really, I think that again, when we pull it back to like our friend group, our whatever, that kind of rings true. It's kind of like you while you respect, you know, what you do and your the different gifts that everybody has and whatever else, we also are able to just kind of just friends hanging out. It's all good. You know what I mean? Like a jerk wouldn't make it too far in our group. Let's put it that way, right? On that note, because we have to do your podcast, is there any final message, anything you want to say? I know we said they can find you at happygrasshopper.com.
Yeah, actually, there is one other thing I'd like to share.
Okay.
Right? So I've always felt if you've got good data, you can make good decisions.
Yeah.
You just can. And so a gift for everyone here, if you really want to know what works, like messaging you can just rip off and duplicate.
Yeah.
Just send any email to yes@happygrasshopper.com. Just do that right now. Just write any. Don't worry about a subject line. You don't have to write anything special.
Yep.
Just send any email to yes@happygrasshopper.com. And our system's going to respond with a link for you to a document I've written that teaches you everything we've learned in the course of nurturing 37 million relationships. Like, there's content in there you can just grab and steal and try today, and you'll see that you're really not as far as you think you are from having success with your database.
So close, right?
You got to get the message right. You
Yeah.
have to get the message right.
Yeah, so true,
Yeah.
so true. With that being said, Dan Stewart, my man, appreciate it. Thanks for being on. Can't wait to have you at the Advance, guys. If you don't have tickets yet, jaredjamestoday.com/advance. Guys, get your tickets, your colleagues, everybody. I promise you, you will not regret being there. It's relevant now more than ever. Looking at this new landscape, this new era. We talked about a pivot. We talked about changes. I've been saying over and over again, right? You will not be eliminated because of change. You'll be eliminated because of your inability to pivot or adjust to that change. And I can't stress that enough. And we're going to have a real focus on that. I'm going to have conversations with, brilliant minds like the one sitting next to me right now. Really just getting that little bit of information you need to put into place to make sure that you're not only around, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but you truly are the best option. The best option for your consumer. And quite frankly, you owe it to yourself. When you look at self-development and when you look at learning and you look at training and you look at practice and you look at these things, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your consumers, you owe it to your families, you owe it to everything that it is that you say that you want. That's part of the investment that's needed. So hopefully we'll see you in Orlando, and we'll be very straight edge and good for 2 days, and then we'll party like it's 1990, been 10 years that we've been doing this.
Let's do it!
Thank you, everybody. Till the next episode.